You are one of the great confidants to the industry's leadership. And I think the firm owes a lot to who you are as a leader and those relationships that you have built. So my hat's off to you for that. And I would argue your shoes are going to be hugely challenging to fill. And if somebody was to ask you, when you think about the leadership attributes of your successor, how much of it is going to be a reflection of your DNA, and are they going to have some other leadership strengths that are different than yours?
Yeah. Well, they're identified, by the way. So in terms of successor, I mean, there's a clear identification of who's next up, and I'm pleased to say there's a wave of them. And when you go through a transaction like we just went through, which is we're investing our own money in the enterprise going forward, you ask yourself the question, okay, if you're investing your own money, what does the value of that firm look like in 5, 10, 15 years? And do you have the right people who are coming up to be able to fill those shoes, the people who will fill my shoes and their shoes and so on and so forth? And I would say that, I often joke about the fact that I have an above average IQ, but not an exceptional one. I haven't been cursed with an exceptional IQ. And so I ended up candidly having to develop, much like a blind man who ultimately develops an intense sensory perception around hearing, taste, feel, sound, all the rest. I developed probably a higher level of EQ, or emotional intelligence, if you will. And then I was blessed to develop a little bit of SQ, and I'm still working on that, which is the soul quotient. And when you get to that point,
I ask you what SQ stood for. I didn't know, so thank you.
when you get to the point, EQ is sort of, at the heart, and the SQ is even a little bit deeper. And you get to a point where you ultimately just, you've experienced a lot, you've seen a lot, and you just trust your instincts, because there's very few situations that don't have some derivative application for something you've seen. But what I would say is, for a successor, they've got to be curious. They've got to have, leadership, not just management skills, because in our industry, it's sort of like the second lieutenant coming out of an Ivy League school. They get fragged in the shower because they have no experience knowing what to do, but they're expected to manage and lead. And so I think you got to be a player coach, or else no one respects you, and nobody wants anybody to manage them in our segment of the industry, and certainly within our company. So you got to be a player coach. I think most importantly, you've got to be empathetic. You've got to understand, the people who are working with you, the people who are working for you, and ultimately your clients are the people who you work for. And if you sort of use that as the prism that you look through, I think that you're on to the right thing. And I believe that those are leadership skills and characteristics that somebody should have. And I'm blessed because I've got an executive committee that is made up of people. I mean, Jeff Weber, I've been in business with for 40 plus years. Jeff Scott, Jay Borsey, Mike VK, Steve Silk, Jeff Weber, as I say, and Jim McCaffrey. And these guys are just, leaders in their own right. I mean, just total icons and legends in their own space. And so you've got that, and then I've got this management committee that is, the top 18 people in the firm that we rely on for, and they're all coming from a product or a geography that brings us a different perspective around things. And then the wave of the next generation. So I know whatever those characteristics are, they're amongst and between those folks, and so I'm quite confident that what I would see in a successor exists.
Right. Well, it's a lot of who you are, right? So it doesn't sound like the talents are going to be all that much different.